Rain pelted the cracked sidewalk as Rowan James tightened his grip on his daughter's hand, shielding her with his worn hoodie while guiding her through the crowd outside the corner grocery store. "Daddy, are we gonna get strawberries?" Lily asked, tilting her tiny face up, her curls damp and sticking to her cheeks. "If they're on sale, we'll grab a box," Rowan said with a tired smile, lifting her into the crook of his arm. "But we're not touching anything over $3, deal?" She nodded solemnly like she was signing a treaty. He kissed her cheek and ducked under the awning of the store. That's when he saw her. Standing just outside the door, a woman in a beige coat, expensive, clean, and way too nice for this side of town, was holding her phone in one hand, clearly trying to wave off a shouting match between two men who were arguing too close to her. "I said back off, man!" one of them barked, jabbing a finger at the other's chest. "Or what? You gonna cry in front of your girlfriend? She's not my—" Rowan didn't think. He handed Lily his phone and whispered, "Watch cartoons. Don't move." Then he stepped between the woman and the men. "Hey!" Rowan's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Take it somewhere else. There's a kid here." One of them turned toward him. "What's it to you, man? You her bodyguard? She looks like she doesn't want to be in the middle of your nonsense, so yeah, right now I am." The second guy laughed. "You got a death wish?" Rowan didn't flinch. "No. I've got a daughter who's watching. So unless you want to teach her that grown men can't handle their tempers in the rain without throwing fists, I suggest you walk away." The taller one muttered something under his breath, but both of them backed off, grumbling as they disappeared into the crowd. Rowan turned to the woman. "You okay?" She blinked, her hair frizzing slightly at the edges from the drizzle. "Yeah. I thank you. No problem." He turned back to Lily, who was now holding the phone like it was a sacred relic. "You alright, kiddo?" She gave him a thumbs up. The woman stepped closer. "That was incredible. You didn't even hesitate." "I've got rules," Rowan said, lifting Lily again. 1. Don't start fights. 2. Don't let 'em happen near my kid. Especially not when we're just trying to buy strawberries. She laughed soft, clear, and kind of surprised. "I'm Bianca. Bianca Owens." "Rowan," he said. "And this is Lily." Bianca waved to Lily. "Nice to meet you, Lily." Lily looked at her with big eyes. "Are you a princess?" Bianca blinked, then laughed again. "Not quite." Rowan smiled, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Her coat looked like it cost more than his rent. Her heels didn't belong on cracked sidewalks. And her perfume, he noticed it now, was something he'd smelled once in a magazine sample. He shifted Lily on his hip. "You sure you're okay?" She nodded. "I was just grabbing something quick. I parked around the corner." Rowan looked toward the street. "Not the safest place to leave a car this time of day." "I'll walk you." "You don't have to, I insist." She hesitated, then nodded. They walked down the block, Rowan quietly scanning every alley, every shadow. Bianca walked beside him, her pace slower than the confident stride she probably usually had. "So, what do you do?" she asked. Rowan chuckled low. "Fix cars. Mostly. Sometimes I get lucky and fix something that actually pays me on time." "And Lily?" 5 going on 15, he said, glancing at her. "Her mom left a few years ago. It's just us now." Bianca's eyes softened. "She's lucky." Rowan looked at her. "You always shop alone in sketchy neighborhoods?" "I was visiting a center nearby. I donate." He raised a brow. "To the food bank?" She nodded. "And the shelter?" "I like seeing where things go." Bianca stopped at a sleek black car parked along the curb. Rowan stared at the vehicle, shiny, spotless, and definitely not from around here. He opened the door for her. "Thank you," she said, sliding into the seat. "For everything." He gave her a half nod and started walking back toward the store with Lily. "Wait," Bianca called. He turned. She looked flustered suddenly, like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. Can I repay you somehow? Rowan looked at her, confused. I didn't do it for anything. I know. That's why I want to. Do you like coffee? He scoffed. I like free coffee. She smiled. Meet me tomorrow? There's a place near the park. I'll bring the good stuff. Rowan hesitated. But Lily was already leaning toward her. Daddy loves coffee. He drinks it even when it's gross. Bianca laughed. Then I'll bring the good kind. Rowan looked at her again. There was something about her, not just the coat or the car. Something in her eyes. Warm. Curious. All right, he said. Tomorrow. She gave him a small smile and drove off. Rowan stared after her for a second. Daddy, Lily whispered. She really does look like a princess. Rowan chuckled and rubbed his face, trying to shake the strange feeling in his chest. He had no idea that Bianca Owens was a millionaire. And he definitely didn't know she was already falling in love. The next morning, the air was sharp with early spring chill as Rowan zipped Lily's coat up to her chin. She giggled, cheeks puffed out like a chipmunk. You look like you're ready to wrestle a polar bear, he said, lifting her into the car seat in his rusted-out sedan. I'm ready for hot chocolate, she replied, kicking her boots against the seat. He chuckled, then glanced at the dashboard clock. Still on time. Rowan had spent half the night debating whether to show up. The other half trying to remember if there was a single clean shirt that didn't have grease on the sleeves. He'd settled on a dark button-up that looked decent under his old bomber jacket, one of the few things he hadn't sold after the layoff last winter. He pulled into a spot just outside the park and spotted her instantly. Bianca stood near a bench, holding 2 cups, her coat replaced by a soft gray sweater and jeans that still managed to look expensive. Her hair was up today, clipped at the back, and she looked effortless, like she belonged in a magazine ad for something that didn't even need a name. Rowan got out, then opened the back door. All right, Lily. Remember the rules, no tackling people with questions. She nodded solemnly, then immediately asked, Will she have whipped cream? Guess we'll find out. Bianca turned as they approached and offered a warm smile. Morning. Lily ran up to her with zero hesitation. Do you have whipped cream? Bianca crouched down and handed her a cup. Mini marshmallows. Close enough? Lily gasped as if she'd been handed gold. Rowan raised a brow. You bribing my daughter already? She struck a hard bargain, Bianca said, rising as Lily wandered off toward the grass with her cocoa. And you showed up. I promised, didn't I? You don't strike me as the kind of man who says things he doesn't mean. Rowan took the second cup she offered. It was hot, rich-smelling, and tasted like something way beyond his usual price range. He didn't say anything about it. They walked slowly toward the edge of the playground, watching Lily hop between patches of dry ground, arms outstretched like a tiny pilot. So, Bianca said, you really fix cars? Engines mostly. Transmissions if I'm feeling brave. I pick up side work when I can. Last week I rewired a guy's boat motor in exchange for a space heater. She tilted her head. That sounds resourceful. That's a nice way of saying broke. No, she said. It's a nice way of saying adaptable. Rowan glanced at her. What about you? You said you donate. That your job? Bianca hesitated, then took a sip of her drink. I oversee a few things. Foundations. Real estate holdings. I consult sometimes. He frowned. That's a lot of words that don't really answer the question. She let out a soft laugh. I help run my father's company. He passed a few years ago. I took over the board seat, and the rest followed. Rowan blinked. You're the one in charge? Mostly. He whistled low. So you're not just rich. You're corporate rich. I'm not trying to show off, Bianca said quickly. I just didn't want to lie if you asked. I didn't say you were showing off, Rowan replied. I just didn't expect it. You look Normal. She looked amused. Do you usually expect CEOs to show up in capes and hovercrafts? Something like that. They paused as Lily ran up and tugged Rowan's hand. Can I go on the swings? Go ahead. Just hold on tight. As she galloped off, Bianca asked, Do you always bring her with you? Always, Rowan said. Can't afford a sitter right now. And even if I could, I'd still try to be there when I can. You miss a lot when you blink. Bianca's gaze softened. She's lucky to have you. Rowan looked at her sideways. You keep saying that. Because it's true. He didn't argue. Instead, he asked, So what are you doing hanging around a rusty old mechanic and his daughter? Her eyes didn't flinch. Because for the first time in a long time, someone did something kind without wondering what they'd get from me. That doesn't happen much. Rowan watched her for a second. That's a pretty lonely way to live. I didn't notice how lonely until yesterday. They stood in silence for a beat, the sounds of children playing echoing around them. Then Bianca cleared her throat. I have a proposal. Rowan raised a brow. That sounds dangerous. I mean it, she said. I'm working on a community outreach program and a few neighborhoods, job training, mentorship, that sort of thing. We're hiring people who know the area and have experience. You'd be perfect for the mechanical side. He froze. You offering me a job? I'm offering you a chance, she said. With pay. Real pay. Weekly. Benefits. And you'd get to teach kids how to fix things. Rowan stared at her. I know it's sudden, she added quickly, but I'm not doing this out of pity. I saw the way you handled those men. You held your ground, protected a stranger, and stayed calm. That's the kind of person I want on my team. He rubbed his jaw, thinking. You don't have to answer now, Bianca said. Just consider it. Lily came running back, breathless and red-cheeked. Can we come here again tomorrow? Bianca looked at Rowan. He glanced down at his cup, then back at her. Yeah, he said. We can. She smiled and nodded. They didn't say anything else, but something shifted between them, quiet, unspoken, real. Neither of them realized it yet, but that moment was the start of something neither of them had expected. Something neither money nor circumstance could have manufactured. Rowan wiped his hands on a towel as he stepped out from under the lifted hood of the battered Ford pickup in the garage bay. Grease streaked his forearms, and he smelled faintly of oil and metal, but for the first time in months, he wasn't thinking about overdue bills or whether dinner would be another round of boxed noodles. He was thinking about her. Bianca had followed through. 3 days after their walk in the park, a man in a navy suit had shown up at the shop Rowan picked up part-time hours in, handed him a folder thick with formalities, and said 6 words Rowan never expected to hear. You've already been cleared and approved. Now he stood in the new space 10 blocks from his apartment, in a freshly renovated community center that still smelled of sawdust and fresh paint. It wasn't just a job. It was a second chance. And Bianca had made it happen. Hey, you okay with this shelf here? A voice called from the side. Rowan turned to see one of the contractors lifting a metal rack toward the back wall. Yeah, that works. Just make sure it's bolted good. These kids won't go easy on it. The man nodded and got to work. Rowan glanced at the clock. Almost 4. Time to pick up Lily from his neighbors. But before he could grab his jacket, the door opened and Bianca stepped inside. He didn't recognize her at first. She wore a navy blue jumpsuit with a name patch stitched onto the chest, Bianca, in looping white thread, and her hair was pulled back under a baseball cap. She looked like she'd walked out of a totally different life. Rowan raised an eyebrow. You lose a bet? She grinned. Thought I'd try blending in. I figured if I'm going to be the face behind the funding, I should at least attempt getting my hands dirty. He laughed. You sure you're ready for that? I brought gloves, she said, holding up a pair. And there's a tool belt in my car. I googled how to wear it. He shook his head. This I gotta see. Bianca walked deeper into the space, eyes scanning the half-finished workbenches and scattered tools. It's coming together fast. Faster than I thought. We've got 6 kids signed up already. I'm making a parts list this weekend. She nodded, then paused near a window. I haven't told anyone I'm involved. I don't want this to feel like a photo op. It doesn't, Rowan said. It feels real. She turned toward him. I want it to be. For all of them. For you. Rowan leaned against the counter. You ever think about why you're doing this? I mean, really? Bianca walked over to a stool and sat her. After my dad died, everything I did felt automatic. Board meetings, investment calls, quarterly reports. I was moving, but nothing moved me. Not until I started showing up to the places we were donating to. Seeing what the money did. She looked at him. And then I met you, and it wasn't about numbers anymore. It was watching you stand in front of strangers and make them back down without laying a hand. It was seeing how Lily looks at you like you built the whole world just for her. Rowan's jaw tightened slightly. I'm just trying to keep her safe. You're giving her more than that, Bianca said. You're giving her stability. Love. That's rare. He looked at her for a long moment. You talk like you didn't have that. Bianca's gaze dropped. My father was brilliant. But he lived in rooms I was never allowed to enter. He taught me how to negotiate a merger before I learned how to ride a bike. Rowan sat beside her. That why you don't let people get close? She smiled faintly. That obvious? Little. Bianca exhaled. You scare me a bit. Me? You make things feel simple. I haven't felt simple in years. Rowan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Maybe it's not about simple. Maybe it's about real. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. Before anything else could be said, the distant clang of a shelf being set into place echoed through the room. Bianca stood. I should let you get Lily. Rowan nodded slowly. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small envelope. This is a voucher. For tools. High quality. Use it for the shop. He took it, hesitating. You really don't want credit for any of this? I want it to work. That's enough. She turned and made her way toward the exit, pausing just before she reached the door. I'll be back Monday. I expect a full report. Rowan tilted his head. About the program? She glanced over her shoulder. About how many kids you've made believe in themselves. Then she was gone. Rowan looked down at the envelope, then out the window where her car had been. He didn't know when it had happened, maybe during that first walk, or the day she handed him something he didn't know he needed, but something in his chest had shifted. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just trying to survive. He was starting to hope. Rowan adjusted the lapels of his jacket as the elevator climbed. The tailored charcoal fabric felt unfamiliar against his skin, too smooth, too perfect. He wasn't used to wearing anything that hadn't come off a clearance rack or out of a second-hand bin. But tonight wasn't about comfort. Tonight was about showing up for the woman who had shown up for him over and over, without asking for anything in return. The elevator dinged, and the doors slid open to reveal a rooftop bathed in soft, golden light. Strings of bulbs crisscrossed overhead, casting warm halos over the glass-top tables and the low hum of quiet jazz. Every detail was understated but precise, elegant without being ostentatious. Just like her. Bianca stood near the far ledge, her back to him, the city sprawling behind her in glittering silence. Her dress was dark sapphire, the fabric catching the light like water at dusk. She turned as he approached, and her expression shifted, surprise first, then something quieter. Something that made his chest ache. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said. I wasn't sure either, Rowan replied. Took me 30 minutes to figure out how to tie this thing. I would have helped, Bianca said, her voice softer now. I still owe you a few favors. I think we're past owing each other anything. She stepped closer, eyes searching his. You look good. You look Like you belong in a place like this, he said. I still feel like I'm about to be asked to leave. No one here has that right, she said. This space is mine. You rented out the whole rooftop? I own the building. Rowan exhaled through a dry laugh. Right. Of course you do. Bianca reached for his hand. I didn't bring you here to make a statement. Then why? She hesitated, fingers tightening just slightly around his. Because I needed you to see the part of my world I don't show people. The part I've built, not inherited. The part one want to share. He looked down at their joined hands, then back at her. You don't need to prove anything to me. I think I do, she said. Because I've spent most of my life surrounded by people who treat love like leverage, something you trade for loyalty or silence. But you never asked for anything. Not even when you had every reason to. Rowan stepped closer, close enough that the warmth of her skin cut through the cool evening breeze. I didn't stop that fight because I wanted anything from you, he said. I did it because you looked like someone who shouldn't have to fight. Bianca's throat moved as she swallowed. You were the first person in years who made me feel safe. And then you became the first person I wanted to build something with. Rowan blinked slowly, his voice lower now. You sure about that? I am. He studied her for a moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Bianca's breath caught, but he didn't open it right away. This isn't some grand performance, he said. There's no camera crew, no press release. It's just me. Standing on a rooftop I never thought I'd be invited to, holding something I bought with the first paycheck from the job you gave me. Bianca's eyes were locked on his. I never had much, he continued. But I've got enough now to know what matters. You matter. And Lily. She already calls you her fairy godmother behind your back. Bianca laughed, a sound with edges softened by emotion. Rowan finally opened the box. Inside was a ring, simple, polished, and set with a single stone that shimmered faintly in the light. Nothing extravagant. But it was real. Earned. I'm not asking for a lifetime of ballrooms and galas, he said. I'm asking for mornings with burnt toast and school drop-offs. For messy hair and shared blankets. For a life that's ours. Bianca's hand flew to her mouth as tears welled. You're not just the woman I fell for, he added. You're the reason I believe in something again. She didn't speak, only nodded as she held out her hand. Rowan slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit as if it had always belonged there. When she kissed him, it wasn't tentative or polite. It was full of everything they hadn't said yet, every moment of doubt, every shared glance, every late-night conversation that had stitched their lives together, thread by thread. They stood there for a long time, the city humming around them, unnoticed. Later that night, they returned to the apartment Rowan had once been ashamed of. But it looked different now. The lights were warm, the walls freshly painted, and Lily's laughter echoed down the hall as she danced around in socks with a paper crown perched on her head. Bianca picked her up and twirled her, laughing right along with her. Rowan leaned in the doorway, watching the two of them, arms folded and heart full. You're really staying? Lily asked, peeking up at Bianca. Bianca glanced at Rowan, then back at her. I'm not going anywhere. Rowan crossed the room and wrapped his arms around both of them. And for the first time, it hit him, not just the love, but the permanence of it. The security. The home they'd built together, not out of wealth or charity, but out of choice. Out of love. And nothing, not money, not past scars, not the difference in their worlds could ever touch that. Rowan stood at the edge of the courtyard, watching the last of the students file out of the garage workshop with grease-streaked hands and wide-eyed grins. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the pavement, and the sound of laughter echoed between the freshly painted buildings. He wiped his palms on a rag and leaned against the doorway, content in a way he hadn't known was possible. Bianca appeared beside him, clipboard in hand, sunglasses perched atop her head. That was the last group for the day. We officially survived our first full month, she said, Barely, Rowan replied. One of the kids tried to install a carburetor backward. He was pretty confident about it. He was confident it would explode. Bianca laughed and tucked the clipboard under her arm. You're doing more than fixing engines here. You know they're already talking about staying late next week. One of them wants to rebuild an actual go-kart. I'll approve it if you let me drive it. That's not happening. She bumped her shoulder lightly against his. You're not very good at saying yes. I'm getting better, he said, glancing at her. But only when it counts. Bianca turned to face him. We've been building this place together for weeks. I think it's time we started building something else. You want another garage? She gave him a look. I'm serious. So am I. But if you're talking about what I think you're talking about, then yeah. I've been thinking about it too. I meant a home. A real one. For the three of us. She said. Not just a place we visit or crash at after long days. Something that's ours. Rowan's expression shifted, not with surprise, but with something warmer, deeper. I've been looking. Bianca blinked. You have? There's a house a few blocks from the center. It needs work. Plumbing's ancient, roof's not great, but it's got a yard. And a tree Lily could climb. She reached for his hand. Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to push. You've got your world, and I didn't know if you'd want to plant roots in mine. I don't care where it is, she said. As long as it's with you. The moment stretched between them, not heavy but full. Then Bianca's phone buzzed from her pocket. She pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and sighed. Press wants a statement about the new community initiative. I told them I'd call back in an hour. You going to tell them you're marrying a mechanic? I was thinking of telling them I'm marrying the man who rebuilt more than engines. Rowan wrapped his arm around her waist and pulled her closer. That's dangerously sweet. Don't get used to it. I already have. They stayed there until the sun dipped behind the buildings, casting the garage in amber light. Inside the house a week later, Lily was sprawled across the living room floor with crayon drawings spread out around her. The scent of fresh paint still clung to the walls, and boxes lined the hallway, half unpacked and full of promise. Rowan knelt beside her, sorting through a pile of mismatched screws and drawer handles. Where's the one shaped like a star? He asked. Lily held it up triumphantly. I'm putting it on my treasure box. Bianca entered from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Did you two already eat the cookies I made, or just the dough? Dough, Lily said with no shame. Rowan stood and crossed the room to her. We'll make it up to you. How? Dinner. Just us. No boxes, no tools. I'll cook. Bianca arched an eyebrow. You mean you'll order and pretend you cooked? Exactly. That evening, after Lily had been tucked into bed with her favorite story and a new night light shaped like a rocket, Rowan and Bianca sat on the back steps of the house. The yard was still a mess of weeds and wild grass, but it was theirs. Fireflies blinked lazily above the fence line, and the air smelled like honeysuckle and possibility. You ever think about how strange this is? She asked. How we started? All the time. And does it make sense to you now? Rowan didn't answer right away. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver key, then pressed it into her palm. The front door, he said. You never needed one, but I wanted you to have it anyway. She closed her fingers around it. I already had the whole house. I know, he said. But now it's official. They kissed beneath the porch light, slow and certain, the kind of kiss that carry no questions, only answers. Later that year, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, they stood in the backyard with a dozen friends and neighbors gathered around. The ceremony was simple. No aisle, no stage. Just Lily holding a bouquet nearly as big as her head and Rowan whispering vows he'd written on the back of an old invoice. Bianca wore a dress soft enough for a hug and barefoot shoes that disappeared in the grass. When they exchanged rings, Lily clapped so hard she dropped her flower crown, and Bianca laughed through happy tears. At the end of it all, Rowan lifted his new wife into his arms and spun her once, just enough to make her laugh again. And when he set her down, he whispered, "Told you I'd say yes when it counted." Years later, that garage at the community center would double in size. Lily would teach her friends how to change tires before she turned 10. And Bianca, still driven, still radiant, would quietly fund scholarships for every student who came through their doors. But the real story was always the same. Not about the money. Not about the titles. Just about a man, a woman, and a little girl who turned a chance meeting in the rain into a life built on love, trust, and the kind of second chance that only comes once and never leaves.